my name is Milan. I head the operations for Great Learning, which is a partner to UT Austin in this program on AI and machine learning. And today's session, we have Everth here, Everth Hernandez. He's an accomplished technologist who's started off as an engineer and just worked in companies like Cisco and HP, and right now he leads the operations for the entire country, actually, in Mexico, in rolling out Wi-Fi and wireless technologies to, I think, he was telling me about how they are basically having a huge impact covering the whole country. He's a student of ours at this AI and machine learning program. And, we thought we'd, see the path that others have taken. It will help us understand, how we too, based on, no matter what our background is, how we too can benefit from a program like this. So that the hope is that we all can do the same in our respective careers and in our respective, lives. So Everett, thank you so much again, for taking time off your busy day. I'm sure it's hard enough to just manage an organization, let alone a whole country, right? So I'm sure you're extremely busy managing, the wireless rollout and the sales and the engineering, and I can't even imagine all the other functions in between that you're managing on a daily basis. And you taking the time to chat with us, so I'm very grateful. With that, let me hand it over to you, Everett.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here, and I'm very happy to share my experience with future attendees to this amazing program. So I'll start by saying that I graduated, have a BS in electronic systems and computer science. I finished that in 1995, quite a long time ago. I started as an engineer, developing code for many different things, not very specific. And then I switched into the networking and security space back in 1997, more or less. And I was there for quite a few time until now, actually. I've developed my whole career in the networking and security space. And I have changed roles many times. I stopped developing products quite a long time ago, and I led into the engineering portion and how to properly design and configure really big, big, complex networks. I did it in my country, in Mexico. I worked in the US for a few years, and I did it there as well. And also, I started leading the engineering portion for Latin America, so I have experience in some other countries in the region. I changed from company to company. I worked for big companies in the networking industry. Some of them are gone because they were acquired in the early 2000s. I worked for Cisco, and then I moved to Hewlett Packard, to HPE now. And since 2015, I moved into a business unit called Aruba. Aruba was acquired by HPE in 2015. And then I started leading the engineering portion for Latin America, and then I switched to the country manager for Mexico, for Aruba in Mexico. And in my current position, I have the full responsibility around sales, operations, of course, engineering for the country. We're a medium-sized company in the country. Worldwide, of course, it's a global company. It's very big, but in the country, we're a medium-sized company, and we have a lot of different backgrounds there. So even though it's been a while since I was coding, and it's not under any of my responsibilities, I will start to look into different programs to learn more about AI. And why AI in my industry? Well, because AI is something that we actually implement in most of the products that we sell, that are cloud-based platforms that manage big Wi-Fi networks all over the country. And we do have AI implemented in their products. But when I'm always curious about how the things really work. And when you in the products that we sell, when you start seeing all these pretty dashboards that pops up with some recommendations for fine-tuning the network, or for implement some stuff in advance to prevent issues. Then I said, well, how can we come up with that conclusion? I mean, where did it come from? And what you get from the people that develop our products, the real coders, is, oh, don't worry, it's AI, it's ML that we have underneath. So we have all this, the way that I say it, we have all this magic thing happening underneath that no one really knows about it, but you just have to take for granted. So I said, I gotta go and get my hands dirty a little bit and know about the things. So I started looking for programs, and then I came up with this one. What I really liked about the program was the approach that it had about build your own stuff, in the sense that you have, of course, the lectures, very high quality for the lectures, great materials, great exercises. And then you have the mentoring session, and after a few mentoring sessions, you have to deliver a project. And when you do that, you start connecting all the dots that happen around all this machine learning program that I went to. And it helped me a lot, to be very, very open and very honest with you guys. It helped me a lot because I was able to understand how we're actually coming up with all those things that are benefits for the customers that I deal with. Of course, it helped me to understand what is feasible and what is not really feasible around machine learning, or AI in a broader sense. And of course, work as a middleman between my customers' requirements and my team, or the team that we have for R&D, so I can actually translate what can be done and what cannot be done. And of course, whenever there's an issue, there's a problem, it's easier for me to understand what is really happening underneath, and I can just manage the expectations with the customers that I have around how we're going to go and solve this. So that's in a brief history, the way that I did it, and the way that I chose this program.
Awesome. No, thanks, Everett. This is very inspiring. Your journey is amazing. From small companies to big companies. And what I see is that you always taken that initiative to look at how things are working, under the hood, right? Like I love what you said about. And this is something that I'm seeing time and again. We have now about 30,000 students who graduated from our programs, which we've been running for the past 7 years. And the one defining feature that I find, or defining trait that I find among students around why they are interested in this, in learning about AI, is because, of what you said, which is, people would come and say, hey, look, here's a recommendation, right? In your case, that maybe here's a recommendation how to configure your wireless network, or, whether to move to, this location or some other location. And, you would always scratch your head and say, well, why? Like, who is giving this recommendation? Where is it coming from, right? And it's a black box. And then what I find is there are two kinds of people. There are folks who would say, well, yes, it's a black box, and I'll just take it at face value and blindly follow whatever that recommendation this AI magic is telling me. And then there's another group who says, well, I want to open the hood and see why is that happening, and more importantly, why does it have to be that way? Can I make it better? How is this AI exactly working, right? And and that's that second group that I feel that I see time and again are the ones who do really well in this program, just because they have that inherent curiosity on saying, well, let me open up this black box and try to at least understand what's going on. One quick question, Everett, given that you had experience also working in different orgs, right, from startups from smaller companies to the larger ones like Cisco and HP, and now leading Aruba. Any reflection on, this is just out of personal curiosity, do companies encourage such innovation from within, like someone like you who's now looking at how can I use AI to improve our products, right? I don't want to settle for just something that somebody's just giving me as a black box. I really want to know why it's working the way it is, and I want to improve on it. Do you find that during your time at startups, during your time at slightly bigger companies, your time at these large companies, any difference in this management style in terms of encouraging employees to work on these futuristic problems?
I think that it changed from company to company, and of course, it depends on the role that you are. I have had a fortune to work for great companies in my career, and all of them encourages innovation from the field. That's kind of the way that they say it. And right now, at this moment in my career and the work that I do, since pretty much everything around technology is moving to a platform in a certain sense, all the different vendors are trying to build their own platforms. And when you build your platform, underneath you have a lot of data that has to be processed, that have to be understood. And the way that you do it, of course, is with different methods, leveraging AI in the end. So when you are able to kind of understand how it works underneath, and since we are actually trying to build a platform, you're able to, and by definition, the platform has to be open, it's API driven. So you are creating something where partners can code and build products onto your own platform. So it's API driven, as I said. And when you are in the position that I am, if you understand the way that this platform benefits the customers in the future use cases, you're actually innovating innovating from within the company. So we're not worried, as you said, and I lead the operation for Mexico. It's a big country, of course. It's a developing country. It has a lot of issues. But since you're in the field, you can kind of see how it works, and you see how your platform can improve the lives of the people that are in my country. So we've actually take that approach, and we have developed specific things around our platform that are available for market. I'll just give you a quick example. We have a very big rollout of access points in a public Wi-Fi service in Mexico City. It's in the 15,000 of them. And when we started the pandemic in March, we developed an application that takes all the data, right, and creates a matrix where you can see how the people is actually moving from one point to another. How? By leveraging the data. Of course, it's data that does not have any name related to. It's just a number. So you just get aggregate numbers. But we build an application that can let you know if you're a public officer, if people are actually staying at home, if they are just congregating around certain spots. You can compare it with time, so on and so forth. So we did it. Of course, that thing is leveraging all this platform. But in the end, when you're able to connect all those dots, you're able to innovate and build a solution specifically for your market. Even though it's a big company that I work for, I think that we're being able to do.
I like that. I like that a lot because I want to. It's a good segue into. So one of the, and this is something that I see as a very common question as well. So someone has asked about, if I were to generalize that, I'm in field X, and is AI, machine learning something that I can put it to use? Is it for me, right? And I like what you said, because the part around innovating by going on the field and being able to connect the dots. the example you gave about, look, what in your line of work, you are able to collect data, anonymized data about, people who are, on connecting, opening up their wireless, right, and connecting to the closest wireless, access point, which is part of your network. I love the way you use that to create this map of how people move around. And I'm just that alone can be such a powerful, it can open up so many applications, right? A very pertinent one I can think of is, in today's pandemic, where we talk about social distancing, I can see how something like this could be used by a healthcare organization to help understand, where people congregate, maybe, take action by asking people, by maybe putting up signs there not to, to have social distancing amongst each other. So that is just one of many applications I can think of. And all that is possible because, you were able to use your experience on the field, your domain expertise of how, your business works, Wi-Fi works, and start putting this together using AI, using data. And I cite this example because back to the original question that people have, that, I'm in oil and gas. That's a common question. I'm in oil and gas, and, is this program for me? Or I'm in hospitality, or I'm in retail, or I'm in mining. I get it. If I'm working at a Google, or if I'm working at a Facebook, yeah, I can see how people are going to use AI and machine learning. But if I'm in field X, is this for me? Right? And what you have shown is, if you have deep domain expertise in a certain field, if you have spent 10, 15, 20 years in a field, you have something that nobody else has, right? You have that, you understand how your industry works, you understand the problems that need to be solved. More importantly, you understand what kind of data you can collect. And once you have data, you can now apply AI, machine learning, and get some, useful insights, and build some awesome applications on top of that. So I think this is a good example of how, it doesn't matter which field you are in. I think the question to ask is, do you have data that you collect in your area? And what I can tell you is pretty much every industry today, even something like mining, which you might think, what does mining have got to do with AI? Well, there's so much of digital data that you're collecting, even in a field like that, that you can, if you have data, very likely you can apply AI and get some insights out of it. So thanks for sharing that example, Everett. I see some other questions around. So there's a question here from Monsieur around programming background. So I know, Everett, that you have an engineering background, but what I also know is that you did not originally have it was a while before since you had done programming. So could you speak to that, as you started this AI/ML course, given that it was a while since you had done programming, was it hard to pick up and learn Python and then get started on doing projects? Could you walk us through your experience? And also, if you how did the team, the UT Austin Great Learning team, help you in that journey to ramp up and get up to speed on programming that you need for solving these AI projects?
So yeah, it's been a while since I code, probably 15 years at least. So it was a little bit challenging at the beginning because, as I said, it's been quite a while since I stopped coding. There's a Python course that it's available in the platform once you enroll, and it's a very good one. And then you move into the specifics of Python that helps you do the things around machine learning and AI and machine learning, the specific libraries that you have to use. It's another very good piece. But what I really like about this is that as long as you know how to program and you have kind of the logic and how does a programming language works, and Python is pretty easy. I mean, I compare it with some other low-level languages or even C++ or C. It's pretty easy. Python, I think it's pretty user friendly. There's tons of stuff. There's tons of documentation in the internet, so you can go and find. So the way that I did it is I just took the Python precourse that it's included on the platform, and then I start doing all the exercises that came with the lectures and the videos. And it's very, and once you do that, you start knowing, you start doing or coding your own things. When you go into the mentoring session, it has a very solid on-hands approach, in the sense that you go through actual cases and you see how the mentor goes through the whole thought process about how to code this to solve this specific program. And I mean, in the end, you pick up ideas on how to do it. And once you move into your own projects, you know that there's pieces of code that you can go and reuse. Of course, there's Google, who's your best friend when you're doing all this project, so you can kind of look into. And that's the way that you do it. Once you do your first two projects, you start building your own pieces of code that you reuse in the third one, in the fourth one. So you're building on top of everything that you're creating previously. So I would say that it is not hard. So don't be afraid of doing it. If you have a programming background, or if you know how to program, don't be afraid of that. Python is very user friendly and extremely powerful in all these applications around AI and machine learning. And in the end, it doesn't matter actually the code, in the sense that there's tons of code all over the internet that you can go and reuse, or kind of get it and get ideas. What it's really important, in my personal opinion, is that you understand how the fundamentals and the theory around that. When you go coding, you pretty much solidify that knowledge. But the coding portion, I would say that it shouldn't be a concern for most of the people. You just have to put time to go through the program, and then you're done.
No, thanks. This is very insightful, and I would also add to that look, think of exactly what Everett said, that yes, coding is important, because that's the tool that you will use, right, to get to build these models and get insights from the data. But the goal here, the end, it's a means to an end. The end is not to make you the world's best programmer. Right, of course, if you do become, all power to you. But the goal here is, think of it as a tool, and many other tools that you will have in your toolbox. But what we really want you to do is have that mindset, that way of thinking, to say, well, here's data and here's a business problem. Now, how can I use all these tools that I have to build a model, to visualize different cuts of this data, and most importantly, help my team, my boss, my organization, make decisions, right? How do you help them understand that, look, based on what the data is telling me, if we do the following, here's what I predict will happen. And if we do something else, here's what I predict will happen. And therefore, based on that, I think it's important for our business to go with, this outcome. And therefore, let's go ahead and make the following decision, right? So that's what you really want to do. That's what you want to drive, and that's the intent with which we teach you these tools. One of them happens to be coding. So what I would say is, don't treat coding as something that's firstly, definitely don't treat it as something that one needs to be afraid of. Our team ramps you up to a point where if you have some basic exposure to some coding in the past, we start from there, and we just ramp up on Python, because that's the language of that's the most commonly used language that people use to build these models. But the idea is to ramp you up enough so that you're able to use these different libraries from Python to build your models, right? That's the end goal here, not to understand the syntax of Python really well. I think to answer your question, if you have some basic background, some exposure, and what I mean by that is if you have worked on some language, if you understand the idea of if statements and loops, right, for loops, that's pretty much it. That those are the basics, and we just build up from there. To quote the words that Everett said, and in his case, he was able to say, well, what's the data that my business collects? Well, it's all this Wi-Fi data. All right, well, all these concepts I learned, these recommendation systems or, various concepts he might have used, but everything from supervised learning to, to even neural networks, you can use all these your toolbox now and say, all right, how can I apply it to my work, right? And how can I now start getting some insights? And just like Everett, he was able to now apply to for example, map out how people are moving around. I'm sure each of us can similarly, given our domain, what we understand as the problems in our industry, do the same thing.
Most of the projects that we did over the 6-month period for the program are very relevant for any line of business. So yes, on top of that, I would say that the mentor that we had a lot of experience from many different backgrounds, and he was actually working in a big company solving those problems as we speak. So he was able to bring the challenges that he was facing in his current job and expose us to those problems. So we were very lucky with our mentor, because he was able to bring all those things. And for certain topics, I specifically remember vision. When we went through the vision topic, our mentor was very knowledgeable about that thing. And he was able to, once we finished the core module, he was able to explain us some of the advances that he was seeing down the road. So very specific things down the road around computer vision. So I think that definitely the experience for the mentor is a big plus, because he's actually solving things as we speak.
Great. No, I can't emphasize that enough. This idea, this was something that, we started about 7 years back. And back then we said, all right, maybe we can get some great content from faculty, and that's it. And that will help people learn, these difficult concepts. And what we realized was, yes, you learn, but there's a difference between learning something and actually being able to be comfortable applying it, right? Applying it at your work. And that difference was this idea of, let's bring somebody from the industry, right? Not just academia. Academia is important. They teach us the foundation. They teach us the why something works the way it does. But they are different from somebody who is actually rolling up their sleeves and getting their hands dirty, trying to actually try and build that. And like everything else, we know that when you try to build something, you make some approximations, right? You make some trade-offs, some cost trade-offs, some trade-offs in the accuracy of things, and that's when a practitioner, somebody who's actually working on the field, will tell you some tricks of the trade that you won't really know from somebody in academia, right? And these tricks of the trade, have their own place. There was a time when people would go for vocational training, right, for carpentry and plumbing, and they would not go and learn from a professor. They would learn from somebody who was actually doing carpentry or a plumber, because these are skills where they would know some tricks that they would do that you wouldn't really. It's hard to put it into a book, right? And that's where that's how I liken this idea of a mentor. Somebody who is working in this field who will say, well, great, you learned that computer vision. That's absolutely important. You learn the theory, but let me just tell you how I use it on a day-to-day basis, right? And here's some tricks that will get you a long way. And often that's as an engineer especially, that's those are the tricks that you live by. So thanks for sharing that, Everett. So, a few things that I want to bring up. One is we put together, thanks to, having now the hindsight of about 30,000 working professionals who've gone through this, these programs around AI and data science. We put together a career guide on, how to think about different career opportunities in this space. I highly encourage all of you to look at it and download it. It has a lot of valuable information on how you can think about planning your own career. In addition, we also provide career services where you'll be able to have a career mentor. You of course have this. You can network with others who may not be in your industry, but they all have a similar background, similar level of experience. They are all looking at advancing in their own company, in their own career. And they're also constantly thinking about how they can apply this knowledge, these skills, to advance in their space, right? So you will learn a lot from that. We also help you through our own career mentors. We are increasingly now, we have added a lot of, the mentors that we mentioned. There are mentors who mentor you on your weekend sessions, but now we also have a lot of career mentors. So these are people who are senior folks in the AI machine learning industry who will just provide, who will come just to provide career guidance on, how to think about a career in this space, right? And how to plan your own career in this space. And of course, we also encourage you to, important part of your career is you need to write your own story, right? The world won't write it for you. So we help you on, review your resume, your LinkedIn profile, help you with your own personal brand, right? The idea is, you got to have your own personal brand so that the world knows that, about the great knowledge and the skills that you have. And that's where we, at the end of the day, our goal is, as I said, these are just a means to an end. The end is we want you to truly advance in your career, and we really want you to apply, these new skills and transform, the industry that you are in, right? Kind of like how Everth is doing. And my hope is, and I have full confidence that Everth will go on to be an innovator, in his space, right? In the Wi-Fi deployment, the wireless services management space. And just like that, I want to see each one of our graduates innovate and be the thought leader, if you will, in their space using AI, because they know that this is the right time for it. And our goal is to help enable that, right? So we definitely help, and we want to see each of you do well in your careers through this program. In general, AI is a great tool to help businesses innovate and become profitable. And you see several examples of that, including a lot of IPOs that we are seeing right now. A lot of them are AI powered, right? The C3.ai, a huge IPO, Snowflake, huge IPO. They're all using, essentially, they are taking an age-old technology, age-old industry and transforming it by using AI. But that is, from a business setting, there's equally, and I think personally, much more impact that you can do from AI for social good perspective. A good example is the city of San Diego. They just opened up their data sets and said that, look, help us out here. We are going to crowdsource. We don't have the budget, but we have the data on traffic congestion, on our water quality, on our utility data, on our air quality data, and they opened it up for the world, and they said, can people help us out here? Can you help us figure out how to reduce the air pollution level? Can you help us figure out how to improve our water quality level? Can you help us figure out how to reduce our utility consumption, right, by looking at when the peaks happen and when they do not? So when you have data, you can do a lot of great work In fact, some of our students are doing work around, especially pertinent to these times, in helping predict when will be the next flare up and where will it be of COVID, right? Which is, as you can see, COVID is kind of becoming this, every day I'm hearing a new city in the US is now flaring up with COVID. You can use AI to start detecting patterns for that. But anyway, so that is just my vantage point. Everett, any thoughts here on how AI can be leveraged for social good in a place like Mexico?
Yeah, I'll step aside from my current job, my current employer, and I'll just build on what you said. The local government, the Mexico City government, has a very strong initiative around data, open data. Even the federal government as well, for this administration and for the previous one, they start building this open data initiative that essentially is doing what you mentioned around the San Diego example that you gave. They are uploading huge data sets about pretty much anything that you can come up with, from going from things around public security to electric consumption, amount of rain that we get in the city, all those different huge data sets that are pretty much right there, that you can just go download and start working through that. This program gives you a terrific toolbox. That's what it is. It's a terrific toolbox that includes a way of think and approach problem solving around those toolbox and the data that you get. And from that angle, I think that what I learned, and even though I'm not in this non-profit type of organization, but with the data and the toolbox, you can pretty much try to solve things in a very innovative way. And if San Diego has a challenge around budget because they do not have enough to go and solve those problems, you can imagine in a developing country like Mexico, or in the city that I live in, Mexico City, the budgets are tighter. Even more now that most of the public resources are going to vaccinate people and going to kind of contain the spread of COVID and the economic damage that it's doing. So that's what I would say. I think that you will walk out of this program with a terrific toolbox and a structured way of thinking that can help you, given the correct data, solve issues in the for-profit and non-for-profit problems.
Yep. No, and when you talked about what you are doing in Mexico City, I just remembered another initiative, where some of our students are helping. This is in India, right, where again it's the same thing, resource constraints, lack of funding. And now here there's students are working with an NGO, a non-profit, where again using computer vision. So there the problem is water quality in the rural areas. There's a high level of fluoride content, and when people drink it, what it does is it creates a crippling of the bones, and especially for kids. So you might have seen images of kids who have stunted growth, whose legs are kind of curved. Right, that's because your bones start crippling, and it's a big problem because you don't grow to the natural height that you're supposed to. Sometimes it can be even fatal. What they did was they used computer vision. So it turns out that one of the early signs of this disease coming in is your teeth start discoloring. So now, in a rural place like India, nobody really had any sophisticated technology, but they had something which now pretty much everybody in the world has, which is everybody has a phone and a camera on the phone. Right? I'm sure Everett can attest to that around the wireless part that comes in here. Everybody has a wireless connection where they can speak to the internet. So they encouraged people to just start taking pictures of kids And when you take a picture, what happens? You instinctively smile, right? So the kids started smiling, and they started taking pictures of the kids with their teeth. And then they used an a computer vision algorithm that would look for patterns and immediately identify which of those smiles are problematic, in that are signs of the advent of this crippling of the bones. And that was huge, because now they could immediately start going down to that village and saying, okay, look guys, I think there's something in the water here, right? And how do I know that? Because my computer vision algorithm was able to detect something in kids' smiles, right? So it was an amazing example of how, and by the way, this was just as how kids succumb very fast to poor quality water, they're also extremely resilient. So if you make a fix, immediately they become fine, and their bones come back to normal. They're very resilient that way, right? And so now it's actually saving lives, right? So this is a great example of how something that you would think computer vision, or that's probably just something that's used by Boston Robotics and Teslas of the world, right? Something very sophisticated, was used to in a small rural town in India, with something as simple as your low cost cell phones, to help prevent to essentially help save lives, right? So I'm sure there are many more examples like these, that where AI can have a huge impact from a social perspective, especially in in low cost in developing countries. Asim, the answer is absolutely yes. That's what this is for. If you heard Everett's story, he was looking at things happening in his company where people are coming and bringing this, black box, saying, "Hey, here's this magic that happens, and we are going to tell you what to do with your wireless configuration." Well, he didn't settle for that, right? While he didn't have that background in AI, what he had was that curiosity, right? And willingness, that hunger to say, well, I want to know what's inside that box. So to answer your question, yes, even if you do not know, as you put it, ABC of AI, in fact, you are exactly the person that I hope will join this program, because our hope is that we want to demystify AI. We don't want AI to be this black box, this magical thing. You've been working in an industry, you know what the problems are there. We want you to walk out of this program with the toolkits and the confidence to say, well, it's not a black box anymore. I know what the problems are in my industry, and I know here's the data we can collect. Now let me, roll up my sleeves and solve those problems using AI. So absolutely, yeah, you can. This is a great program for you. If I were to think about it as a framework, that there are people who go to school and learn mathematics, and especially statistics and stochastic processes, and the probability, right? And that's a really important science, and people go and study that. There are people who go and learn computer science, engineering, electrical engineering, and become good at software and building software systems. And there are people who go to MBA school and learn business, right? And understand, business problems, business strategies, case studies on how people can solve business problems. And now the way I look at this program is, if you think about a Venn diagram, so if you think of these three circles in your Venn diagram, think of, the intersection of these three circles, right? So in other words, somebody who knows stats, who knows math, at least at a level where he can use that to visualize the data, to understand, all right, statistically this is what this data is telling me, right? At the same time, that same person is also able to understand how to use tools like Python, how to understand basic programming concepts, basic system concepts, to say, all right, here's what the data is telling me, here's how I'm going to build a system out of it. And at the same time, that same person is saying, well, and I'm not going to just settle for that. I know what the business problems are. I know, how you can think about solving this business problem, in a cost-effective way, in a profitable way. And here's how I'm going to help make decisions for this business based on this statistical data that I put together and these models that I put together using my software program, right? So think of a person who is at the confluence of these three, and these are the skills that we want you to have. I want you to have the confidence to be able to handle data with ease. I want you to have the confidence to build these models using software. And lastly, and probably the most important, want you to have the confidence to say, well, based on this, I can predict what will happen, or at least with a good deal of confidence. And therefore, here's my recommendation. Here's the decision I'm going to make for my business. Everett, do you have any thoughts around what kind of skills, any parting thoughts on what skills do you think people will get out of this program if they were to join this program?
I think that you pretty much summed that up. I would agree. There are specific things around the whole program that you're going to learn and take with you, at least from the foundational point of view, specifically around advanced topics like neural networks, vision systems, so on and so forth. I just want to leave I just want to give the audience a personal thought that I have around the program, and it's that it was not mentioned during this session, but you get a program manager office as part of this program, and the program manager office is just fantastic. You cannot value how much it's worth it until you're in the middle of the program and you start maybe getting a little bit behind because you have a lot of work to do in your day-by-day job, or because of all this craziness that we're living all over the world. And then you get the program manager office just reminding you that you're a little bit behind, put more focus on this. Even if you need it, getting to a one-to-one session with your program manager, so he or she can understand what are the challenges that you're facing, and he can come up with a get well plan, sort of speaking. So that for me was a very, very useful thing. Of course, there are people that are more organized than myself that maybe do not need that type of things, but for people like me, I just benefit a lot, and I just want to leave the audience with that specific thing that was not mentioned.
No, thanks for bringing that up, Everett. And thanks for appreciating our program managers. These are folks who are working behind the scenes, but their goal is, something that struck me about Everett's own background is, when he's doing so much, managing, not just sales, but also engineering and marketing. And essentially, as a country manager, I can't even imagine how busy his lifestyle is, right? And but that's also the reason why we have these program managers. Their whole goal is to make you succeed. Think of them as your if you're an Olympic athlete training for the Olympics, you have a coach, right? And the biggest thing the coach can do is make sure that you stay on track, you stay on schedule, and keep putting in those hours. And of course, life happens, things come up, the athlete gets injured, he has to take some time off, but that is where the program manager works with you, right? That's what they are skilled at doing. That's all they really want to do, which is get you over to the finish line. Everett is a great example of somebody who has an extremely busy schedule. I'm sure we all do, right? We all have, especially in these times, we are, have a day job, we have kids. Many of you have kids who are stuck at home, right, taking online school. It's just chaotic everywhere, right? And in all of that, you're also trying to upskill yourself, and that's not easy, right? I'll be the first to admit, it's not going to be easy. It does require hard work, but what we can promise you is that we have the infrastructure in place, we have the program managers, we have the mentors, and our whole goal is, think of us as your coach. We want to get you to that finish line. And while it is hard work, like everything else in life, when you put in the effort, when you put in the work, you do get great things always happen, right? They always happen, and we wish the same for you, for each of you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, your experience, and look forward to great things from you. Yeah, we are always there to support you, and all the very best in your career.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and thanks so much for the great experience that I had in the program.